you have many of these films these days. I encourage everybody, you go out to a Marvel film, stay and watch the credits, not just for that post-credit scene, but watch to see the countless number of people who are working on a film. And then when you see an
Yeah.
independent film, you've got people wearing multiple hats. And so from really having a concept, having a story you want to tell, and the biggest thing for me is don't accept no for an answer. Like when it comes to your vision, you have to fight for it. You have to go out there and do everything possible to get your story told, because nobody's coming. And you will have help. You will have people with like minds. But for your passion and your dream that's in here, nobody can live your dream for you. So you have to go out and do everything possible to bring it to the screen or bring it to, the canvas of whatever discipline you are looking to achieve. And if you keep pushing and doing that, then really, truly, anything is possible.
Hi, this is Christian Howard, aka Ken Masters, and you are listening to Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Casanova Podcast.
All right. And aloha and welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Casanova Podcast. I'm your host, Mikael Casanova. And today I am joined by a very, very special guest, the one, the only MJ. MJ, how you doing today, man?
Oh, I'm doing great, Mikael. Thank you for having me on, and excited to dive in.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And I know we were supposed to have done this podcast sooner, so I'm so sorry. I know we talked about this off air. I'm just going to say it again, man. I'm so sorry. It's been crazy. This year is almost done. And I'm like, how is this year? Yeah, it's crazy. It's like the older you get, like time just like flows like crazy. So
seriously, I've been thinking it's been something that happened 3 months ago for 3 years. I mean, the time flies. It really isn't hyperbole. It's like, I can't believe it's going to be 2026, but it's been a busy year, a fun year.
I know.
A lot happening. So yeah, no, it's definitely going by quickly though.
Definitely. All right, man. So I definitely want to, today's episode, we're going to be talking about your movie and man, okay, before we do all that, I'm going to give the floor is yours. Let's talk about the movie. Like, tell us everything about it, why people need to be watching it, why they need to be hyped, and, anything. Floor is yours. Let's go for it.
All right. Sounds great. So the movie you're talking about, it's called Plight. That's Plight. Plight. Yeah, it's a story about family. It starts off with a tragic accident, and then you have these two people from different backgrounds who are sort of thrust into this position of how do they honor and respect their families. Somebody loses their life, and you have this grief that sets in, and really it's an exploration of how people deal with grief. It's a little bit of a story of the haves versus the have-nots, and I like to explore a lot of themes, but also to build characters that I feel like are people we see every day, and the capacity that we have to react to things and what we're able to do is always something interesting to me. So you have these textured characters, but it's edge of your seat thriller. It takes off, and hopefully you have some meaningful things that you can draw from when you leave the film. And so yeah, it's called Plight. It's available right now. You can see it for free on Tubi. If you don't like the commercials and you want to see the 4K version, it's on Amazon Prime Video as well. We have a DVD and a Blu-ray and a soundtrack coming out in just over a month. And yeah, it's been a fun ride. We played in theaters. We opened in 10 cities. Right now it looks like it's going to be 12 cities. We're still going. We opened in June and still going strong. It's actually been really rewarding. We had different premieres at different cities, and a lot of people come out. This is an independent film that was shot pre-vaccine during COVID time and was really about a collection of individuals who came together to tell a story, who wanted to create art. And my cast and crew, I will always be forever indebted to them for their commitment and their hard work. And so, in my estimation, you can see the heart behind the film on the screen from the people that put the work in. And so, yeah, the name of the film is Plight.
Awesome. And man, I gotta ask, like, what is the like what goes into like the process of even getting started making a film? Like, going from the vision you have in your head to putting it to, pen to paper, and then, to film, and then seeing the final product. Like, walk us through that process, because that's got to be a surreal trip.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't know the extent of that process. We grew up watching these films, these big studio films that have an abundance of resources, a lot of money to throw on screen. You've got these big stars, action sequences. You have none of that as an independent filmmaker. So everything you see, just you start from there and knowing that you don't have any of that. But what you have is an idea. And so from concept, it's really actually magical that you can have an idea that at one point is just in your brain, and then you put pen to paper, if you will, typing up a script, and really I start with building out the characters. Sometimes I start with the plot first. This film I built out the characters, tried to make them as textured and layered as possible. You have that script, and then you have the arduous process of how do we get funding for a film, which is every filmmaker's favorite piece, and getting funding there's a plethora of different ways you can approach it, but typically as an independent, you're putting together small equity. If you get some name actors attached, then great, you may be able to leverage that into some funding, but that kind of model is getting tougher and tougher. When you actually have enough money to go into production, or you think you have enough, you typically have a team that you have to build out with people that you trust. And these department heads, they play a role in every facet of the film. So when you see something on screen, at least in my estimation as a director, you have to come with a vision and a choice. Nothing should be left to chance. If I'm going to give you a frame and there are certain colors there, or we decide to move the camera, that has to be done with intention. Audiences are so savvy these days, like they understand, the music cues seem to be obvious, but they understand if there's an eeriness, why is something eerie? What are the colors on screen telling us? If it is saturated and you have, somebody walk across with, just wearing red, maybe we're trying to say something, or maybe we're trying to say something by not doing that. So the process of working as a director is you have to look at yourself as somebody who is a visionary for that story, to tell that story. And so with film, it's interesting. You have this conglomerate of the two polar opposites. You've got the extreme in business in terms of raising finances and having a product that is there to be exploited and marketed. But then you also have the art, the artistic side of how best do we tell this story, from camera movements to production design and wardrobe and color choices and, framing and composition of shots, and obviously the story, and then the acting, the theater of film. And you have to merge these two worlds in order to keep making films and to get them out to the masses. So you build up your team, you get committed, responsible individuals that, have that same collective passion, and you go make the film. You go into post-production and, you're editing the film. My editor, he's brilliant. He's mining for performance. And if we have an issue with a shot, we're sitting there, you're in the trenches and you are making it happen. The magic of film comes together. And, a post sound designer, he's, our sound team was really one guy. I mean, we had a couple other people do some sound work, but Angelo Quaglia, he's a brilliant post sound designer. He's a Grammy nominated. We were so lucky to have him. He's a good friend of mine now. And he's building out sound. He's either cleaning up the sound that you have, or he's building different sounds. I mentioned my editor, Justin Lewis, incredible. We've worked together on a few different things. He's Emmy nominated. And so we have this tiny film that went into production during COVID with $63,000. And, hopefully when you see the film now, you don't feel that 63,000. We're going to end up just north of 100,000 with all the promises and converted equity and deferred payments and everything. But, you have many of these films these days. I encourage everybody, you go out to a Marvel film, stay and watch the credits, not just for that post-credit scene, but watch to see the countless number of people who are working on a film. And then when you see an
Yeah.
independent film, you've got people wearing multiple hats. And so from really having a concept, having a story you want to tell, and the biggest thing for me is don't accept no for an answer. Like when it comes to your vision, you have to fight for it. You have to go out there and do everything possible to get your story told, because nobody's coming. And you will have help. You will have people with like minds. But for your passion and your dream that's in here, nobody can live your dream for you. So you have to go out and do everything possible to bring it to the screen or bring it to, the canvas of whatever discipline you are looking to achieve. And if you keep pushing and doing that, then really, truly anything is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's one of the things I tell people. I say, you mess around with me, I'm gonna have you believing in yourself, going after your dreams and getting it, because, it's, it's so crucial when you have a vision and you have a dream and you want to make it happen. Like other people can't see the vision because it's not theirs, it's yours. It's your seed to plant, to cultivate that soil and to make it grow. And you have to do what you need to do to make that happen. And it's absolutely essential. And what you were saying about, staying for credits when you're watching the Marvel movie or anything out there, there's so many people that go into making these movies happen. And I know the public perception is always around, oh, the actor or the one director. And it's like, you have no idea how many people go into making this stuff that you enjoy.
Yep.
Like make that come to life. You've got sound engineers, you got the script writers, you got the video editors, the color correction people, you got so many different folks. And it's just on my heart that I wish that more people understood how much passion and love and hard work and dedication goes into the craft.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just piggybacking off what you're saying, that hard work and dedication, it also comes with an artistic mindset. These artists that I'm so blessed to work with, let's take wardrobe, for example. Someone who is building wardrobe, we actually had on Plight, Elise Wilsey. She was incredible. She was running our and costume design, but also our production designer as well. She was doubling up, and she only had one other person on our team, Grace Amato, who was incredible as well. You have two people running two departments. You have two people running. I mean, you might have 30 people in one tiny division within a department on a Marvel film. But for example, the artistry that's involved is you're not just thinking what a character might be wearing for a particular scene, but, you're working with the director to honor the vision and you're looking to tell the story. But there's a progression of character, right? So, she's got to be thinking about, well, what are the textures of this outfit? If something is floral versus if it is, a little bit more reserved, that tells the audience something. If the character within the film is in like a very dire time versus, a time with blissful joy, that needs to be reflected. And then the colors, so everything needs to be thought of, and the artistic side of what you put on camera, and on screen, it means something. And so these individuals are working so hard to bring a vision to life. And at least for me, I don't want to stymie their creativity. There's sometimes I have an idea for something, and Elise or Vidigo von Schulzendorf, our amazing cinematographer, he may come to me and say, hey, this is a better way for us to get this shot. Or she may say, I think that we need to place this in front of the camera in this scene because this indicates XYZ, or she needs to be wearing that, or he needs to be wearing this. And you have to be willing and open to knowing that as much as you have a vision, like, you are beholden to the film, and whatever fits the film best needs to be the choice. And I have such an affinity and appreciation for all the talented individuals that have come to work on this film.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yep. And so one of the things, like, I'm always fascinated when I get to have, people like yourself on the show, when it comes to, coming up with the characters, creating, going from it being two-dimensional, writing it on a piece of paper, to fleshing out these characters, like their motives, their mindsets, their emotions and such. Like, what is that process like, specifically for you? Because that is, it's not easy. People think, oh, it's easy to do. No, it's not. It is not easy. So I'm curious, like, what is your process, and what is your inspiration when it comes to writing characters?
No, it's a great question. I think for me, it's about accuracy and realism. You want these characters, you're creating a fictitious character, but in my mind, this has to be somebody that everyone can relate to and everyone believes on screen. The suspension of belief that people have with film, it only goes so far. If you go out to a werewolf film, like, you understand that, well, I'm going to see werewolves, or I might see leaping and jumping that, or makeup that doesn't necessarily exist, or we can't necessarily point to. But if you're writing a welder, you have to dive in and understand everything there is to know about welding and what that welder is going to do, or a painter. So for me, really, it starts with writing character bios for these characters. So I'll take the main principal characters, and sometimes even supporting characters. I will sit down and try to write their life story from the beginning, so that I'm informed when I'm writing the dialogue, that, well, this person had dealt with some trauma at 6 years old, or, they lost a family member here, or they, their favorite toy, was this yellow truck. I mean, just randomness. But when you know your character so well, it doesn't become random. You're writing a piece of dialogue, or you're trying to decide how they will react in a situation. You know that character. And, it also goes with the actors. I mean, I like doing these character studies with the actors, and I've been blessed with so many incredible actors that are very willing to do that. Where we'll sit down and we will talk through their character, and we will build and craft the character together. Because at the end of the day, I can write a character, I can design it in one way. I'm not in front of that camera, as a director. Sometimes I just acted something, actually. But typically, like, that's another story. Typically, you are creating a vision that then needs to be embodied by another actor, and that actor has to become this character. So you really have to think about that process, and it's about understanding, how can I get that actor to a comfortable space where they can portray that character in the best way possible. And then listening to the actor as well, because they are going to take over your character at some point. And a lot of filmmakers, writers, directors, they become so precious on, like, well, you have to say this word, or this is what I wrote down in my basement, at 2 a.m, like, this word. No, it doesn't matter. You don't know who you're going to have unless you just have an abundance of money sitting around. You're very likely going to cast an actor that you don't know, and sometimes you'll work with the same people. And that actor might say something a different way, or they might look at that line of dialogue and say, I'm just not buying it. I'm not buying it. It doesn't even mean it's a bad line of dialogue. It's just their character might not buy it. And you have to be willing to budge on that. Don't get me wrong. Like, you stick to your vision, but the understanding that at the end of the day, it's about what, again, serves the film, serves the character, serves the story. That's the most important. And so, building those characters out, really starts with the idea and the vision for them, and then just crafting that bio for them, so that I know, like, I think of, the lead characters, like, I know their life story already. So when I write that script, like, I already know how they'll react. They may have a proclivity to do something in this moment and that moment. And it changes a little bit, but you always want to be well informed going in.
Right. Definitely. I want to ask about the actors that you have in this movie. The way that they approached their characters, was it more method acting? Like, did they get in the mindset of the characters, or, like, can you walk us through how that process was? Because from what I've seen, and I haven't seen the movie in totality, but I've seen enough of it, and I've seen the trailers, and it's so, like, it's like something that could actually happen. That's how believable it is. But I definitely want to learn more from you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I think, so these actors, most of the actors we had were method actors. Our lead actor, actually, Matthew J. Plumb, he's not method. And it's interesting because, he plays this guy in Western Pennsylvania and he nailed all the colloquialisms of, Western Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh and the borough of Braddock, and we're in a very intense scene, and I yell cut, and he's English, he's British. So he just, he'll turn and he'll crack a joke right away. And he's like, "Hey mate, are you," and it's funny because we're in the most intense scene. And the first time that happened, nobody in our crew, not nobody, but a lot of people, they didn't know. They were like, "Oh my God," because his accent was top notch. Like, and so he can go from an intense scene to that. And we did have one intense scene where we talked about it, and he was going to go to like a deep level where it was really making sure people on set, like, hey, don't get into space, don't bother him. We had Ryan Manuel, who is another one of the lead actors. He was method, and he went to some dark places. Lorraine Isbell, she did as well. And then we had Pasternak, our lead actress. It's actually her first time on screen, her first film. She had to nail an accent, and then she got cast 10 days out. She's a singer and a songwriter, a violinist, and she's kind of bigger in her music career. You find, as a director, what works with each actor. And so some of the actors going to the depths of emotion that, will kind of ride a line of comfort. At the end of the day, it's still a human being right there. So you want to make sure that they are comfortable, that they're okay. There were a couple takes where, they nailed the performance, we say cut, and one of them just starts weeping. And it's about understanding and having a communication with the crew as well. Like, when they're in that space, no laughing, no goofing off. Like, everybody has to give them room to breathe and to perform. And sometimes you take a second, and we take 5, and I go with the actor and talk to them, and they come out of it, and I'm sitting there like, they just gave me this gold on screen, this amazing performance, and they're weeping, and I'm like, hey, we got it, we're good. Or you gauge if you need something else. And I mean, every time they're like, "Oh, I'm good to go again," or I can go again, whatever you need. And that only really is established when you have a bond with the actor, when they feel that they can trust you as a director, when you feel like you can trust them as actors. And then the set, everybody in the crew, if there's a comfort level there, then they are in a position where they can perform. And so, so some of the method actors, they went to these incredible depths of emotion, and there were some physical things in the film too that, we always have to make sure. We had some stunts, and we had a brilliant stunt coordinator, Gary Choi, who, he had his stunt team, and we went through every single thing, went through the safety. It's comfort breeds confidence. And when you are working in any artistic endeavor, you need that confidence. You need that ability to perform.
Definitely. And one of the other things I wanted to ask about is, like, when it came to with the movie, because most people, when they make a movie, if they're going with different studios and such, like, they always have to cut or curtail some of their vision to fit whatever box, whatever studio is. But for you, did you get the like, with not having that overhead, were you able to fully create the film that you wanted to without any, like, major compromises or roadblocks or anything like that? Because I've had so many different directors on there, like, yeah, I had to, about 75% of what I wanted to do, I had to cut out and give them this. It ain't really what I wanted. Like, it's not like a Snyder cut, the Snyderverse type of situation.
I mean, that's a great question, and I definitely have an answer for you. It's interesting because being an independent auteur, there is this idea that, oh, it's great, you have full control, you don't have to cut anything, you don't have to adhere to a studio or some executive that has their own agenda. And in some ways, that's true. And I have this, I'll say, discussion, not argument, this playful discussion with some of my good friends and fellow filmmakers. I don't like the word compromise, because as an artist, as a filmmaker, compromise, it seems to insult the artistic integrity of every artist. They're like, you know, if I'm compromising, then I'm not really doing what I need to do. Well, here's the thing. You can maintain full artistic integrity in making your film. But like I said, we had $63,000. So how can I not compromise? How can I not? And so I look at it as adapting. It's like, if you're on a studio film with $200 million, there's something you're going to get that major explosion you want. You're going to get exactly the look you want. There was Quentin Tarantino's production designer I was looking at the special features for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And she was like, yeah, Quentin really wanted this look of, 1970s Hollywood and this and that. So we built this street, we built this theater. We built that. They just built everything. It's an incredible luxury. If, I think our production design department, I don't know what they had, $1,000 and then buy from these stores so we can return these clothes here and we can return this and that. I mean, so yes, you have control. I'm a director and you have a vision, but you don't want to be in a position where you are running a totalitarian regime and it's just everything is your say. So there are you go through the process with the script. I went through an extensive process of having some, very trusted friends and filmmaking colleagues that will look at it, but that we're not yes men or yes women. Like they'll tell me, hey, MJ, I don't believe this character, or what are you doing here with this? Or they'll say, hey, this is brilliant. Like, no matter what, this has to stay in. You don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, but you also have to understand that you're not an expert in every single field. And so, you have to have the voices that can resonate. And then, there are, I'll give you an example of something that we had to compromise. And again, I like saying adapt. We had to be adaptive with. The last week we shot this film in Northwest Kansas in a small little town that, hadn't been hit by the virus. We quarantined in place. We stayed in this little town. And the last week we were supposed to shoot in Denver, this big sequence at this big house, but there was a shutdown, there was a curfew, nobody could go out and go anywhere. And so we had to scramble during production to find this mansion in this tiny town in Northwest Kansas. So the biggest mansion we could find that would also let us shoot wasn't a mansion. It was like a farmhouse, but it was a really, really nice farmhouse. But the closest store was a Dollar General, a couple minutes down the road, or a Walmart Supercenter 45 minutes down the road. So everything my production design team, like they had to go and try to make things work at Walmart. And we have a safe in the scene. It bothers me every time I see it. There's this dinky little safe, but what can we do? Like, what were they going to do? And it's like, am I going to rewrite the scene or this? And, we couldn't. And sometimes like, I have to have this. This is something that's a pinnacle of the film. And you do go and reshoot something. And we did that. We had a pickup shoot for what I felt like was a very important scene and something that needed to happen. But you have to make those decisions based on money, resources, time, and how integral it is to your story. So that is really where the compromise or the adaptation occurs. So, these independent filmmakers out there are like, I want to stay independent and I just want to, no, look, for me, I want to continue to grow. I want to tell the stories, but you have a gauge, a percentage of where, you're not losing the film or you're losing your vision. But it occurs on all levels. The film that the buck stops with you at 60 grand, 70 grand, or the film that's 200 million and some executive tells you that you got to cast his cousin because, as a favor, they have to be the one who's there. Like, it happens on every film.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I'm curious about is like, where you guys filmed in Kansas, like, what is the process of, I guess, when you go to places to film, like what goes into this? Like, this is something I keep forgetting to ask other directors I've had on the show, but like, what is that process like? Like, it's got to be time consuming, but like, are there restrictions? And I know this is a multifaceted question. Like, is it like a lot of restrictions or like, how does that work? I'm curious about that.
Well, it's interesting because we were ready to go to a premiere of another film that we did, a film that I produced. And we were driving down to LA. The premiere was March 13th, 2020 at this film festival. And, March 12th, we're getting notifications. Okay, the NHL just canceled their season. The NBA canceled their season. this virus is shutting the world down. A week prior to that, we were gearing up to make Plight, to shoot Plight, and our lead actor Matthew, he kept telling me about, he had this friend who had property and connection to this little town. He's like, "Hey mate, we got to go out there and you got to see it." And I kept thinking, well, we were all based in Denver at the time, so I kept thinking it's about 3 hours away. How do we house people? It becomes a bigger issue. You got to feed people, not just one meal for being on set. You got to feed them 3 times. I kept poo-pooing the idea, and I went out there with him and our producer Heather Webb, and who was brilliant in her own right and finding ways to make everything work, getting us what we needed. We went out there and I saw locations and I fell in love right away. I mean, they were so textured. There was so much character with every location. And our furthest location was a farmhouse, which was a 2-minute drive. So everything else you could walk to. And then when COVID really hit, it became paramount that we went there, because we tested everybody. But then we said, if we go there, we got to quarantine in place. And being in a town where there was one bar, there was a coffee shop, there wasn't much to do. It was easier for us to kind of keep everybody, the cast and crew, in town. Nobody could leave. And so it became sort of like the decision that made sense for the film logistically. But the film is set in Western Pennsylvania. And anybody who knows Kansas, it's not Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
The reason I wrote it that way is because I grew up in the East Coast, and there is this malaise of gray and depression that sets in. It's seasonal depression, but also congestion of these eastern and especially northeastern towns and cities that really, I felt like, lent itself to the story and the premise and what happened. This old steel town that time has passed by, and with an economic downturn in society, and so this was important to mirror. So what we ended up doing is we shot principal photography in Kansas, and then Terrell Lamont, who is one of my best friends, who's our composer on the film. He composed a brilliant score, but he's also a filmmaker, a cinematographer in his own right. We went out there, the two of us, and we got every shot we needed to establish. We had this dinky little drone that one gust of wind over one of the 3 rivers in Pittsburgh would have just knocked our production out, but we luckily were able to get the shots we needed. We took the camera, we went, just the two of us, and we see this train track that really lends itself, okay, let's go there and let's not get hit by a train, and let's get whatever we have to. But that was one of the pickup shoots, if you will, but it was bare bones. We had barely any money, and discussing with Heather, like, she's balancing the checkbook and she's looking at, like, well, how do we do this? That was one of those things where I didn't want to compromise. I knew that this look was important. And so it was, as a filmmaker, sometimes as a director, when you're battling the how, you sometimes have to come up with the how, and you got to find the money. And so we found a little bit of money to strip down the crew. The 2 of us went out there. We drove in Trell's wife's van, and we just went out there and made this happen. And so you have this film set in Pennsylvania that is shot in Kansas, part of it shot in Denver. And so the locations, that's how it comes about. But then it's also on you to work with what you have. So the locations in Kansas, a lot of them, I would say, were, 70-80% like ready to go in my vision. But then production designer and her team, like, they come in and you enrich those locations. You make them a certain way so that it really is as close to 100% as possible. And, the film mirrors, like, there are scenes in Ukraine. And so that farmland worked for the countryside of Ukraine. And so we have this film set in Pennsylvania with, Heather, she told me this too in the script. She's like, well, one thing, we're going to do this low budget film. When I was in the early stages, she said, okay, so to save money, like, avoid animals, avoid accents and like different languages, avoid kids. And I put all of that in the film. You got, a dog in the film. You've got, little kids speaking in different languages. You got to do it sometimes if the story calls for it, but then you got to find a way to make it happen.
True. So when it came to having the film premiering at festivals and then going to theaters and into Tubi and to Amazon Prime. What was that process like? And how, like, do you ever have moments? Like, one of my favorite things to say on the show is surreal, because it's to get the audience to realize, like, it took a lot to get to this point. So it is surreal when it becomes made manifest. But how did it feel seeing all the different places that the film has gotten to go to?
It was incredible. I mean, it's one of the most rewarding experiences. I really encourage every filmmaker and every film goer, if you can, go to these film festivals and then go to the screenings and the theatrical runs of any independent film you see, because we don't know how much longer we have that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to speak it into existence, but I love going to the video store with my dad to go pick out a movie. And whether it was Blockbuster or whether it was like the mom and pop video store down the road where I grew up from, and that's
Mm-hmm.
gone now. That doesn't exist. And so these theaters, we have to keep them alive as well. And these festivals, they curate films from different people, different backgrounds, different voices. Sometimes you'll see name actors in them. Other times they're people you've never seen before. But typically, if you go, then you'll see some representative of the film, and they'll talk about the film, they'll talk about the process, and you get to connect with these artists who really, we all need support. The arts are important, and it's an important thing to support. So it was a great process. Anybody who knows, when you're making a film and you're submitting to festivals, you have to be ingrained with the idea that we're going to get a lot of rejections. It just means it's not the right place.
Mm-hmm.
But then with Plight, we were so blessed. We premiered at Julian Dubuque International, which Movie Maker magazine is like the mecca, the Bible of indie film. And they were ranked in their top 50 list almost perennially, but they also made their top 25 list. And, our little film, we premiered there. We were actually the world premiere showcase as well. And then we went on. I didn't want to do a big festival run. I thought under a year, but then we gained a lot of traction and even got recruited to some festivals. We did a 1.5 year run, and we ended at Orlando Film Festival, another top 25 film festival ranked by Movie Maker. And we were blessed to win Best Picture at 4 different film festivals. Our cinematographer, Vidigo von Schulzendorf, he won Best Cinematography. He was nominated at a few. He won it at 2 of them. Matthew J. Plumb, our lead actor, he won 2 Best Actor awards. Ada Pasternak, our lead actress, she was nominated several times. Ryan Manuel, one of our actors, was nominated. I was fortunate enough to win Best Director a couple times, even at Orlando.
Nice.
And so it was a nice way to cap it off. Orlando, we had 7 nominations, the most. And then you look and you've got some films there with like John Hedder's in this film, Billy Zane's in this film, Matthew Morrison's in that film. And you're like, and I'm like, man, our little film is among these giants, and it's incredibly rewarding. And then from that process, really, it was looking for distribution. We had some distributors approach us, but for me, when you don't have, look, I'm not a name director, I'm not a household name. We don't have household names as our lead actors, so you have to have an attachment of sorts. The
Mm-hmm.
the old axiom remains true that if you have Nicolas Cage in a film, he could stare at this wall for 2 hours and you're going to get a minimum guarantee. Someone's going to fork over a few $1,000,000 to buy that film because they don't care what the film is. They could say, well, Nicolas Cage is in it. He's looking at a wall. Doesn't matter. I'm still going to watch it, right? So getting those festival accolades and wins became our attachment. And I talked to many different distributors. There were some bigger names that we were very fortunate to get offers from, but ultimately I ended up with Indie Rights. They've been a champion of independent film for a long time. They were so transparent, and they worked with me too. They typically have like a boilerplate deal that is standard that they go with, but they were flexible and worked with me on things. And we were able to have a theatrical run, which was very dear to my heart. Doing a 10-city run that turned into now
Mm-hmm.
11 and possibly 12, and having it on Amazon and Tubi and everywhere, and having physical media, because who knows how much longer we'll have those DVDs and Blu-rays that you can hold. They were great to work with in that sense, and it's the process has been very rewarding. Audiences would come out, we would do Q&As, and premieres in some of the different cities, and audiences would come out and they were very engaged in asking questions, asking our actors or myself or any of us about the process. And so, like I said, I encourage everyone to go to film festivals or go to these independent films. And, all of your viewers right now too, like, I'd love for you to watch the film. Again, it's free on Tubi. I don't care if you watch it on Tubi. I'd love for you to watch it. A big thing for us too is reviews or ratings. You don't have to write a long review, but if you like the film, rate us on IMDb, Internet Movie Database, imdb.com. If you rate the film, it goes a long way. The more ratings we have, we can get some traction, get some eyeballs on it, and review it. Rotten Tomatoes if you'd like. But biggest thing is just check out the film, support artists if you can. Like I said, free on Tubi, or if you want the 4K uninterrupted, it's on Amazon. If you want that physical media, plightfilm.com, we will have all the information for when that is available, or Impavid Entertainment, that's my studio, impavidentertainment.com. And you can also keep up with our projects. We have other projects coming up too. And so, sorry for the elongated answer, but yes, that was...
No, it's fine.
So.
Okay, so I have two final questions before we wrap up, and one of them, you keep mentioning the importance of physical media, and as someone who is in the content creation space, who does cover video games as well as film and TV shows and such, it's alarming how physical media is just being purged, and people don't really pay attention to it. Like, I don't think many people even realize how many brick and mortar stores are like, yeah, we're not really going to carry DVDs or Blu-rays or physical media in general. And it's so weird having grown up with like VHS, and to go from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to, I don't know how many people remember HD DVD.
Yeah.
That didn't last long, but a super short run. But you had Blockbuster, Planet Hollywood. You had all these different mom and pop brick and mortar stores where you could like get your movies and media, and it's alarming that it's going away, and the ability to have ownership is going. And it's like people don't realize that threat that's coming, and that if we go to, and I know we're trending towards an all digital future, I know it's ultimately inevitable, but man, I love owning stuff, being like, it's on my shelf, let me go pull it out, I'm gonna go pop this in my Blu-ray, I'm gonna go watch this. I like the convenience of digital. I just don't like that at any point they can be like, oh, it's gone,
Yep.
So
exactly.
How do you feel about this shift we're having with physical media and this purge, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't love it because I love physical media. And so I see the purge, and I see, like you said, it's down to two stores really outside of the mom and pop stores. Walmart has a very truncated section, but I drive cross country, and I'll stop in every Walmart, and you get a bigger section sometimes in the Midwest, and then Barnes and Noble still has some. Target, Best Buy, no more movies. You get the mom and pop stores, and I love those because they tend to have a better selection. But yeah, I think like you said, you can have a film on streaming, and you want to go back and watch a scene, you want to watch a film again, and then it's gone. And even when you purchase it, I had purchased a film years ago, and I went to go review the film again because I had this actor I was looking to cast in another project, and it was gone. And I remember contacting Amazon, and they're like, well, you didn't access your account for X amount of years or whatever. And so like the film was gone. They just took it away. And I was like, okay, well, I purchased it, and it's now not even here. So yeah, I mean, I think on one end it's a way of the times, but I still feel like we can, hang on to it for as long as we can, and negotiate that. Like as a filmmaker, I wanted to make sure we had some physical media. And I think the other thing that gets lost too is special features. That was the best part. We have special features.
Yeah.
A lot of people you can find them. You can go to YouTube and try to find them, but you watch a movie, and like when you would have it on a Blu-ray or DVD, you pop up the menu and you'd see bonus materials or special features or trailers. you knew, okay, well, I could watch these right afterwards. I like this film. Let me go see. Oh, they have a behind a BTS feature. Okay, let me see what they were talking about. What why did they make this decision? The attention span these days, you may watch a film, enjoy it, and have a question, but after it's done with streaming, before the credits are done, the next film is already playing. So you're already on to like the next thing,
Yeah.
or you back out and you go to, find something else. And so that part is lost. You'd have filmmaker commentaries, and we have one on ours. So we still did it. We were like, look, we're going to have the special features behind the scenes. We have a music video. We have an original song and a soundtrack for the film. So it was important, even having a physical, we have a physical soundtrack, and we have, we'll have it out, on YouTube and Bandcamp and Spotify and all that. But it's, you have to, I feel like you have to hold on to it while you can. And if viewers and audiences still clamor for it, it'll come back. There's a little bit of a resurgence with records right now.
Yeah, there is.
Vinyl. Yeah, and that sound that you can't really truly replicate. I mean, they're getting really good. You can replicate it, but it's not the same. And to me, I think there's also a culture behind it. Like you said, having a film there, like I knew I was one of them, but I also, so many friends it was like you had a movie collection, and it was not to show off, but it was almost something that, you'd have like, these are my movies, this is what I have. And it's a little time capsule of, that of like, oh, I bought this movie here, or this movie was gifted to me, or, my friends and I, we watched this film on this night. And you don't get that with streaming. Now it's like the film, you watch it, it's gone, and it's hard to retain.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my final questions I have for you is AI. Now, AI is such a big topic in so many different fields right now, but the stuff that we're seeing with Google's VO3 and other different ones that are out there, where people are like, oh, I have an idea, I can make a video game with this, or I can make a movie with this, and I can, like, I see it tearing through the voice acting industry, where like, oh, we can just replicate someone's entire voice just by, a couple sound clips. Do you feel like AI will be a continued threat to filmmaking, or do you think this is a temporary phase that we're going through? Like, what is your perspective on it?
That's a great question. I don't think it's a continued threat, but it'll be a continued presence. And I think, as filmmakers, we have to embrace it. I'm not the biggest fan of it. We just talked about physical media, so it's the same as like AI is get away from, really doing the work and putting that process in. And there's something to practicality, like, shooting practicals, shooting real people, shooting, a canvas that you design yourself is always going to have a more honest and genuine, like the look that you create will be more honest and genuine when you put it out yourself. I think AI is incredible. It's getting very, very incredibly well versed. My worry with it, though, is all this information that AI is researching and taking. At some point, the more and more that we have content-wise that is AI, it's going to be learning off of its own AI. So,
yeah,
I think that individuals and people, like, we will always be able to tell some of the best stories. The nuances, it's going to be hard to perfect with AI. And sometimes, there is beauty in the imperfection. And I feel like AI is as crisp and as clean as it gets. And so, look, it'll have its place. I do think as filmmakers, we have to embrace it from the standpoint that we can't just, shun it and poo-poo it, because it's here to stay. There's no turning back now. It's here to stay. But I think with embracing it in a way where, maybe you're shooting a scene and it's a more elaborate CGI. I remember CGI and visual effects came along, and there was this whole thing of like, the 90s action films. We shot real cars, we shot these real car chases, and now it's like going to be done in a computer. But you still have filmmakers that say, I want to shoot that car. I want this car to drive off this bridge. Because audiences were so adept at knowing this sort of intrinsic feeling of something that looks real versus looks slightly artificial. So I think that'll remain true, but we have to embrace the place that it can have. Like I said, it's here to stay, but I still feel like it won't be a threat; it'll be a presence, and filmmakers will still be able to tell their stories. As any independent filmmaker knows, it's just another hurdle, obstacle in your way. So you see AI, and I think like, okay, well, that's just another thing that we could try to navigate around, or if we embrace it, maybe it can help us in some ways. And so, you roll with the times.
Yeah. It's something that, I do a lot of stuff within the tech sector, working with various companies from Lenovo and more. And when I talk to a lot of the everyday people, there's a general fear of AI and the potentiality of it to put people at work. And I tell people, like, yeah, I mean, that's very much a real thing. You're starting to see it pop up in a lot of businesses. I mean, it's crazy when you go in McDonald's, they have a whole AI thing. You can just go there and you don't have to go to the front and deal with anyone. Or out here in Hawaii, we got a Ruby Tuesdays where it's like they have these AI robots that go around to deliver your food. And, servers are starting to get less and less hours, and you're seeing it happen. And I'm like, here's the thing. It's not going to go away. I know people have this idea, oh, we can just get rid of it. No, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube, but you can adapt to it and understand its presence and hopefully leverage it to be beneficial to yourself and to those around you. And in many ways, I guess another way to look at it is it forces some people to step up their game and be
100%.
so good that you can't be replaced by it. So yeah, it's so many different ways to look at it, but yeah, anyone who watches or listens to this, like it's not going away.
Yeah.
It's not going away.
It's not. And we can't be worried about something we can't control. I think that remains true in life, in anything. Just focus on what you can and control what you can control. And that's all we can do, especially as artists. You have a story you want to tell. Don't be stymied by the advent of something. Learn to embrace it and utilize it in ways that helps further your story or helps further, your artistic endeavor.
Yeah. So with that being said, man, is there anything you want to leave the audience with? Anything you want to plug? The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Well, first off, again, I just thank you so much, Mikhail, for having me on this show. I'm excited to be here. It's been great talking to you, and I really appreciate it. I mean, you've had a tremendous array of guests on, and so I feel very honored to be on this show. So thank you, and for having this conversation with me. And I think the biggest thing I would just leave the audience with is, anybody who's listening to this podcast or has a vision or a dream of something that they want to go after, it's all possible. You can do it. One of the biggest phrases I hear thrown around is manifestation and manifesting. A big thing I'll say is manifesting without follow through is nothing. It's just dreaming.
Yes.
And so if you want something, you've got to be willing to put the work in. You have to roll through mud, run through a wall, do everything possible to achieve your goals and your dreams. As artists or as entrepreneurs, as philanthropists, anything that we have to give back to this world, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. And so, with that, follow through, pursue what you want to pursue. And yeah, as artists and dreamers, we are here to tell stories and to give back in this world. And I feel like that's very incredibly important. And then, the film, if you've been listening all the way here, you probably know it now, but in case you haven't, the film is called Plight. Again, winner of Best Picture at 4 different film festivals, including 2 top 25 festivals ranked by Movie Maker magazine. It's available now for free on Tubi, or the 4K version uninterrupted on Amazon Prime Video. DVD, Blu-ray, and soundtrack physical media is coming out in about a month from now, so right at the tail end of 2025. And if you're near one of the theaters, we played in over 10 cities. You can still check it out in some. But that's the biggest thing is go out there, support artists, and we'd love for you to come watch the film and support in any way you can. Awesome.
And where can people find you on social media?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So social media is just MJ underscore Alhabeeb, which is ALHABEEB underscore junior. I'm sorry, underscore JR. So MJ underscore Alhabeeb underscore JR. And Impavid Entertainment, which is IMPAVID Entertainment, or Plight Film. And those are the IG handles. And starting to get back into Facebook a little bit. Got to build up our Facebook. Yeah, that's where you can find us, and impavidentertainment.com or plightfilm.com as well.
Awesome. And I'll leave links to all of those down in the description down below on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, which is one of the sponsors of the show, as well as Spotify, and also on YouTube, because this will be on YouTube as well. And yeah, MJ, I really want to thank you for coming on the show. I want to give a special thank you to Seth. Seth and I go back, oh my God, a long time. So, I want to thank him for reaching out and connecting us. And man, I haven't seen that guy in forever. I got to reconnect with him. I don't even know. Is he still in Hawaii? I don't think he's in Hawaii now, is he?
He's in Hawaii. He just came back to LA for a little bit. I just saw him, and he's back in Hawaii. Yeah,
okay.
Seth Michaels, also a great friend of mine as well, and a producer on this film. And he's actually been with me for a few of these journeys and a few of these films. He produced one of the other films we had. And he's an incredible writer as well. So look for, he's got a film that he's writing that we're about to embark on in the coming years. And big thanks to him as well for setting this up and linking us up.
Yeah, man. It like when he hit me up, he's like, "Hey, working on this film. Would you be interested?" I was like, "Man, I'd love to interview it." And it's crazy because I remember we used to work together. I remember him talking about all the creative stuff that he wanted to do, and I'm like, man, just get after it. So it warms my heart, seeing that he's doing the damn thing now. So yeah, man. Seth, if you're watching or if you listen to this, man, thank you again, brother. I'm happy. But with that being said, MJ, it's been an absolute honor having you on the show. We got to do this again anytime you want to. Just let me know. We can make it happen.
Thank you.
And if you're ever out here in Hawaii, I do have a recording studio that I film out of at Hawaii Co-working here in Waikiki. So if you're ever out here, professional podcasting studio, definitely love to have you over.
Definitely. Likewise. No, I'd love to be on the show again. And I do need to get out to Hawaii. That is definitely on my bucket list. So I have to, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely, man. So with that being said, that's the episode, people. You can catch this episode along with every other on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, all those different places, as well as video format on YouTube and exclusively in video format on Spotify, which is one of the sponsors of the show. And with that being said, we're signing out. We hope you guys have a blessed and aloha-filled rest of your day. Go watch Plight if you haven't already. Available on Amazon, also available on Tubi. And if it's in a city where you're at and they're playing it, go show some love. With that being said, we're signing out. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
For your time for listening to this episode of the Casanova Podcast, number one podcast in Hawaii. If you found this episode to be incredibly enjoyable, informative, or if there's anything you gain from it, or any insight, or anything that's good that you really, really enjoyed, make sure whatever platform you're listening to it on, or if you're watching it, leave a comment if that's available on the platform, like it, share it around with someone you think would enjoy it, and give us some feedback, because your feedback is exactly what we need to keep this show going. And if you're wondering what are some ways that you could support the show, we got various ways. We've got Patreon, we have channel memberships over on YouTube, as well as Subscribestar, Coffee, and so much more. Links for everything will be in the description of the podcast, so make sure you go check that out. And with all that being said, I hope you have an aloha rest of your day.
Let them know that I'm next level. I'm a whole new kind of guy. Yeah. Yes, at the top spot, in case you forgot. We the ones that got the block hot, bullet got the shot.